welcome to Crush Your Mountain Wellness and Personal Growth. I'm your host, Henry Gassing, Certified Health and Life Coach, and I am happy to have you with us today. And the reason why this episode is so important, and I'm going to really encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this information, is because women are really at risk for so many different challenges. There's unfairness across the board, but I think about what my mom went through with her Alzheimer's and the other illnesses that came about as a result of that, or maybe it was symptomatic of something else. The healthcare industry really didn't address it effectively. Same thing with so many women across the board. Did you know studies show that women are more likely to be misdiagnosed than men when it comes to experiencing heart attacks, according to the Journal of American Heart Association? That's in 2028, that report came out. And they also face a higher out-of-pocket cost, despite requiring more medical care, according to the Commonwealth Fund of 2022. Now, these disparities can lead to dangerous delays in treatment, chronic mismanagement of conditions, and a higher burden on women navigating the healthcare system. So why does this matter? Well, a 2023 report from the World Health Organization states that while women make up 70% of healthcare workers worldwide, they hold less than 25% of the leadership positions. The gender gap in medical research is equally alarming. Until the 1990s, women were largely excluded from clinical trials, according to the U.S. FDA Food and Drug Administration. And that led to a lack of data on how conditions and medications affect them differently from men. On today's episode, we're diving into these critical issues with our guest, Ms. C.R.U.S.H. Winslow, a healthcare and wellness coach and a dedicated advocate for women's health equity. C.R.U.S.H.'s personal experience with the healthcare disparities, ranging from unequal treatment for respiratory infections to systematic neglect in workplace case injuries, shed light on the urgent need for reform. She'll share her research and her insights, real-life case studies, and practical strategies for women to advocate for their healthcare rights. So you're going to learn some stuff in this episode. Number one, you're going to learn the latest research on gender disparities in healthcare and why women are often receiving delayed or inadequate treatment. You're going to learn the impact of healthcare system errors, including misdiagnosis, insurance denials, and administrative roadblocks. How systematic biases affect women, as well as their personal experience in the healthcare and what can be done to challenge them. The importance of patient self-advocacy, how to prepare for a medical appointment, and how to effectively communicate with healthcare providers. Why your alternative medicine and second opinions can be crucial in taking control of your health journey. So listen, this is an important issue for people and women, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our wives, our nieces, to be aware of. Because, as I always say, let your doctor be your guide and your partner. And you as a patient, we as patients, are not passive recipients in our healthcare journey. We want you to encourage yourself, advocate for your needs, and seek out healthcare professionals who respect and prioritize your well-being. So let's get together with Ms. C.R.U.S.H. Winslow and crush our mountain. See you in a little bit. C.R.U.S.H. Winslow, welcome to Crush Your Mountain.
Thank you, Henry. I'm very blessed to be here with you.
Well, you've had so many challenges, and so you can speak on this, especially about being who you are, okay, as opposed to who I am. Tell us about the challenges that women face pretty much throughout the country as far as getting proper, effective, and informative health care?
Well, I found it quite interesting when I started actually researching the problem after all of the years that I have gone through different issues with the healthcare system. And it is, it's not something that's quiet. It's well known. There are organizations that have been formed specifically to address these needs. The Commonwealth Fund is a national public health service that was founded in 2022. They wanted to articulate a vision for a truly national public health care system to protect Americans' health and reduce inequalities between women and men and races. And uh, they have found that there's higher rates of underinsurance and out-of-pocket costs for women. And it isn't just women as a subset, it goes farther when you start talking about African American women, Asian women, American Indian women, Eskimo, Alaskan natives. Um, they have significant differences in healthcare also. I've seen the personally on my end, my husband, we've been together 40 years. We've been married 38 years this last December 27th. And we
Congratulations.
drove, as you said, I've done a lot of things. I spent 10 years in emergency room critical care, U.S. Army medic in the medical field. I spent 10 years as an alcohol and drug counselor. I've talked to a lot of people. I went into counseling because in truck stops, truck drivers would bare their souls to me and say, "You ought to be a counselor. You're so easy to talk to." And so I went into the counseling field. But when we were driving truck, uh, both separately and together, one point we both came down with pneumonia and we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we had company insurance and they sent us to the clinic that they send their drivers to. I actually was in worse shape according to the x-rays. They did the same testing. They did chest x-rays on both of us. They saw us both at the same time in the same room, did chest x-rays, did a breathing treatment, an IPPB treatment, intermittent positive pressure breathing, and gave us some medicines. But they sent him home with a 3-day Z-Pack. Well, home. We were traveling 48 states in a semi. And they gave him a prescription for a Z-Pack, which, you only take for 3 days. They gave me a prescription for 10 days of amoxicillin. And he says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are you giving my wife something different? We drive truck. We drive team. She is an active driver. We do 10 hours a day apiece. She's got to be behind the wheel. Well, she's a woman. Just let her rest. She
Huh.
can go home or something. We lived in Washington State. We're in Oklahoma. I can't just skip off to home and take a few days rest.
So now,
And this has been a prevalent thing since then.
let just to recap. Both of you have the same illness. Okay, and it's a common thing. Bronchitis, kind of hits everybody. In fact, I'm still looking after my wife now because she has that, and unfortunately, I got hit with something. It wasn't as severe, and they gave me something, and I was better in 3 days. Now, to be fully transparent, hers was a little bit more severe. Okay, mine just kind of hit me. Bugs just don't like me. I taste bad or something. So they leave really quickly. But with her, okay, she's just so sweet. So they're gonna linger. So they gave her something and she's taken it, but it's still taking a while. There's the weaknesses still there. But in your case, you didn't have the luxury of staying home.
No.
You see, and therefore the doctors, and when you ask the doctor, they responded, "Well, she's a woman. Just let her stay home." Did you do any pushback? Did you get the Z pack that he got? How did that end up?
We did not get the Z-Pack. We tried to push back. We got nowhere. He left the room and we were, kind of escorted out by the medical assistant. Said, okay. I said, honey, I'm used to this. I've been telling you, women don't get the same care as men. Well, I
Mm,
know you said that, but it didn't really hit home. I didn't really understand or believe that. He took his Z-Pack 3 days later. He was feeling great. 2 weeks later, I was still sick. We called them back up
mm,
and they said, well, you just need more rest.
wow.
I ended up later on in the emergency room in, I think it was Oklahoma City. We'd already gone. I mean, this was 2 weeks later or so. Ended up in the emergency room with Oklahoma City, and they finally put me on a Z-Pack.
Hmm.
This was now that to be fair,
And
Henry,
3 days later,
this
you were
was
better, right?
this was yeah, that within a few days I was better. And to be transparent, as you say, this was over 10 years ago.
Mhm,
Now, in the last week, I have undergone a similar situation. My husband went into an appointment. We had just switched primary care providers. He went in on the 2nd of January, and I went in on the 8th. He got excellent care, but he had an obligation when my appointment was, and he didn't go in with me. I had gone in with him. And she was very receptive to both of us because he's not a medical professional. He doesn't remember all of the nuances that he needs to tell him. And she was very open to listening to me until it was my appointment.
mhm,
And then I felt badgered. I was the documentation, which is one of my big pet peeves that I've been dealing with, is errors and omissions in the chart. And that's
mhm,
something we'll talk about when we talk about what people can do to, you know, take care of their own health care and
mhm,
make sure they're getting the proper appropriate care. Errors and omissions, she kept telling me I didn't need a cardiology referral. She was 100% sure. I did find out that the previous doctor had been telling me for over 6 months that he'd given a referral and cardiology had refused it.
mhm,
Cardiology refused it till after a Holter monitor. After we did a Holter monitor 2 months later, and after I'd already been in the hospital for an angiogram
mhm,
a month before they did the monitor, he still was saying me cardiology wouldn't talk to me. I found out from her he never gave me a referral.
mhm,
It had never happened.
mhm,
So that was an eye opener again. I've been fighting with cardiology, trying to talk to someone, couldn't get past the reception. I have begged for a referral for over 6 months. I have gone so far as to this is a major health organization on the West Coast. And I have talked to the administrators in 2 different locations and am now in contact with a person that was referred to me after contacting the CEO's office for the entire organization. And I am working with them. I can say they have been very wonderful and are not pleased at what they're hearing.
mhm.
And this is an ongoing process that I hope that we can help more than just me. This isn't about just an individual. This is a disease in the healthcare system itself.
You know,
It is inadequacy.
yeah, the bigger challenge also is that you have that there in the healthcare industry, but then you also have on top of that the insurance agencies, the insurance companies, the health insurance companies that find reasons to deny people needed care. It's a shame that in some cases, just an example, and I won't mention any names. One client, one patient needed a continuous glucose monitor, and so the idea was they actually refused to give it to him, said you don't qualify for it. Now, for those that may not understand this, if you have a continuous glucose monitor, you can actually have a more accurate read of the levels of glucose in your body, and you can actually do what you need to do to not just manage, but reverse and maintain your state of health in a low glucose state, non diabetic state. Well, the long story short is that he got worse and worse and worse. And the irony is that once he died, here comes the box with the glucose monitor and all the equipment. and they say you now qualify. And the actual letter, from what I understand, because I'm receiving this admittedly secondhand, the actual letter said status deceased. So you qualify when you're dead. So we look at things like that, and that was in terms of a man. How much more so do we see the mistreatment when it comes to women in the field, and women that not only are part of the care, they're not just clients, but they also work for the companies and still get that level of mistreatment, lack of empathy. So is it any wonder that doctors now, and sad to say, even female doctors. So now here's another question for you. Would you say that this tends to be part of what's called the God complex that certain doctors develop?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's kind of ironic because I have I'm going to physical therapy right now for I broke a leg 2.5 years ago, on the job. I have been fighting labor and industries. There's another insurance. It's occupational insurance through the state. And I the doctors failed to diagnose a potential head injury when I fell. I fell hard enough to do a 3.5-inch spiral fracture of the upper femur.
Mm.
And you don't have to hit your head for a head injury, but it wasn't properly documented for 7 to 9 months. I kept asking and telling them I was dizzy. Now, 2.5 years later, I am still fighting to get 8 weeks to 12 weeks of treatment so that I can return to work. In the meantime, they're paying time loss every month. They are paying for physical therapy that is laying down and sitting, which I can't stand up to get to work because I'm too dizzy. They are paying for a vocational counselor every week to talk to me, and he can't do anything because I can't be released to work. And they have paid for several 8-week sessions, or a couple of them, and have wanted me to go to another one for behavioral health intervention, to help me deal with the stress and the frustration of not being able to work and not getting proper treatment and having to fight with the system. Uh, I could have been back to work a year and a half ago. This is the most ridiculous system I've ever seen in my life. And I
Now,
am still to this day fighting it.
now, just so to balance things, do we have an example of a man who has experienced something similar but got essentially perfect treatment, is back to work and thriving and doing well?
Well, I know that things have changed over the years.
Mhm.
And back in 29 or 10 1990, my husband had been in the same system, and it took him over a year and a half. The doctors kept saying, "You're just trying to ride an Illinois." He kept saying, "I have a shoulder injury. You're just trying to ride the system." And he went back to work. 2 years later, they finally found out that he had torn a rotator cuff, and that because he went to back to work driving truck, loading freight and everything in pain for over a year and a half, he had not only needed the repair of the rotator cuff, but he had damaged the muscles clear down in through the biceps. He was out for almost 3 years, and they had to retrain him. Now he's able to go back to driving truck. But at that time, the system said, if you're going to be out for more than 6 months, you have to go through retraining. Here I am out 2.5 years. They've changed the policy. Now it's not, they have to retrain you. Now you have to beg to get retrained if you can't return to work.
Wow, that's amazing. From one
So
extreme to the
it,
other.
and one of the things that I found in the research was that uh, even though women have a more difficult time with access, men don't necessarily always get the same treatment either. They have their own issues with getting healthcare treatment.
Well, what's the contingency that makes that happen with men as opposed to women? What does it depend on in terms of the level of care that they get?
I think it's very, very hard to determine that. They haven't really come out with um, a solid reason for that. Part of it may be that they say that though women delay treatment and have less access to treatment, men have more access to treatment. However, uh, the stereotype of women don't work and men do. Uh, most men do work. They are not responsible for childcare and other things.
Mhm.
So they have to schedule their appointments around their job.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, uh, the overburden of the system affects everybody.
That is
But it was really interesting that I couldn't get in till the 8th, and yet there was an appointment that came available on the 2nd for my husband.
wow. It's what really makes me think about is just over the years how society in general has viewed women. It's ironic that you have one of the world's large religions, that hold a woman in such revere and honor that she is referred to as the lady in just about every country. And you even have a cathedral named after the lady. Okay, that and what made the lady so important was that she bore children, or as in this case, bore a child. But you have throughout the world and throughout the centuries, you have had cultures where the deity was the mother, and the mother bears the child. There's a sacredness to that. And yet you look in society and you see that when it comes to looking at taking care of a woman who is basically, let's just face it, the foundation of humanity, because they bear children, they keep the children going. Men plant the seed, but women bear the children and they raise the children. They are the mothers, right? So in many cases, they are the first medical treaters. They are the ones that are the caregivers. And it's ironic that with all the revere or reverence given to the female ideology, or the ideal of the woman, the idea, the concept of the sacred woman, it's ironic that you have this disparity. As teachers, they're paid less. As nurses, they're not given the respect that they should have. As teachers in the home, as in terms of childcare, there's always been pushback as given in terms of having them, giving them access to proper childcare, proper time off to taking care of their children, to proper time off looking after their husbands. There are progressive companies out there that are doing some marvelous work and making some serious changes, and yet we still see where women are struggling. So
It's
talk
interesting
to
you
us
brought that
about that.
up because one of the statistics that I found was World Health Organization says that women represent 70% of the global health workers in the world, um, but they only hold 25% or less of the leadership roles.
Mm,
And women in the US, female physicians make 70% of the counterparts of their male counterparts.
mm,
You mentioned, women being revered. Yes, but there's also some societies, at least in the past. Uh, I remember a book called A Handful of Rice many years ago that I read in elementary school. And it talked about, it was a story of a young woman. And when in her society, if a baby was a girl, it was put to death. If it
mhm.
was a boy, it was a man. They were helpful to be working in the fields. She Her mother kept her, went back to work, but turned around and made her into a servant.
Wow. It's interesting that you say that. Um, for years, if you remember, China had the one child policy, and something similar was happening in China, and something like that was also happening in India. But there wasn't a one child policy. So what happened in China was they were saying, well, if it's a girl, they would actually perform an abortion and allow the son. Now the population is shrinking severely, and most of the people there, there are girls there, but they're most, but they are outnumbered by all these men, all these young men who can't find it, and parents are literally walking around pictures, marry my son, you know. So it's interesting that you say that because that's something that he has even played out nowadays, you know, in not now what is now the 21st century. I remember the Good Earth, you know, and by Pearl Buck, and the woman, she had a baby in the morning, she was back out in the field in the afternoon. You know, it's just showing how women are or mistreated, maltreated even by society. But now, what can we do to help women to be aware of medical treatment so that they can get proper care from their doctors and other health practitioners? Talk to us a little bit about that. What things that can
Well,
women
one
do?
of the things that we need to do as a society is women, according to an article in Time, uh, called The Generation Gap in Medical Resources, a research, excuse me, women are underrepresented in medical research. This leads to a lack of understanding in diseases and treatment, especially that are related to females. As you were talking about, women in uh, the issues with maternal care. Um, Over 700 women die a year. And there is due to um, insufficient medical care with childbirth. And
Is
there
that
are
just in this
disparities.
country or is that globally?
Uh, that was originally, I mean, let me check and see. I forgot exactly what it was. I believe it was globally, but there's a difference with the care of women that are Black or Hispanic or Asian or, like I said, Native American. Those all have higher incidences of death than the white woman. And as you can see, I'm one of those Caucasians. I call myself Heinz 57 Mutt because I've got German, French, Italian, all kinds of stuff in me. Who knows? And I have seen it when I worked in the healthcare industry. You
Mm.
know, they have lesser access. They have a higher cost of insurance, lesser access. People who live in a rural environment like I do, I live out of any of the major cities. I'm 35 miles from a state capital. And it's, if I had a heart attack right now, I am about 2.7 miles from a fire department in a small town. Could they get to me? Would it be in time? I don't know. And that kind of adds fuel to they talk about mental health. Women are more prone to anxiety and depression. Well, if you're getting this kind of care and fighting these kind of obstacles in your life, what do they want? But they label you then. That stays in your healthcare record for eternity.
Yeah.
Oh, you've just got a mental health problem. You're just depressed. You're just complaining. So people have to take steps to make sure that they are heard and that they get a quality of care. You ask what we could do. One of the things is educate yourself, understand your rights as a patient.
Well,
Should be able to get a Bill of Rights from everybody. Can get a Bill of Rights from the organization that they're seeing. That, I believe, is a federal requirement. If not, there are local health advocacy groups. Do your research and understand your condition. Like you were saying, you went, no, 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 no. This isn't right. I'm going to look into this and I'm going to find out what's going on. They have to be careful because the internet, everything on the internet is true. Absolutely. Right? Correct? No. We can't believe that. You have to use credible medical resources. Uh, I've looked into and cited where CDC, uh, Mayo Clinic's another good one. Uh, the National Institute of Health, American Diabetes Association, Cancer Society. Uh, there are a lot of resources in there. If it says .gov, that's probably a good one. If it says .edu, it's probably a good one. If it's a major hospital that you know off the tip of your tongue, it's probably a good resource. So knowing your resources, researching your condition, uh, be open to alternative medicines. I'm not a doctor. I don't say, just do everything without your doctor's permission, but talk to them. Would this hurt me if I tried this? Well, I don't think it's going to help, but I won't hurt. There was a lady that, when I was an addictions counselor, that had been given 6 months to live. She needed a liver transplant because of her drinking. And they couldn't do anything for her because she didn't have a year clean and sober. You can't go on a transplant list if you're destroying your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I started researching, and I told her, I'm not a doctor. I am not prescribing for you, but here's something you can check with your doctor and see if it would help.
Mm-hmm.
And she took the information, she took it to her doctor. He says, well, I don't know if it's going to help, but it ain't going to hurt you. You're dying anyway.
Wow.
And 6 months later, her liver had started to heal itself.
Mm.
So I'm all for alternative medicines if you do it in the proper way. Get a legitimate source, make sure you check with your doctor, or make sure they're licensed in the state. And there may be options.
That said, the idea also is to always get a second opinion, always ask questions. And so, the idea is, again, we as a people, and women in particular, should be mindful to take their health into their hands, to be in charge of their health. The doctor should always be, and I've said this before on this show, let your doctor be your teammate. Let your doctor be your coach, so to speak. Your doctor is not your boss. Your doctor is not God. So the idea is to let them work with you, but you take charge so that you can consult their knowledge, but you can also consult the knowledge of others and come to the best decision for your health. Okay,
Yes.
that's the main thing. Talk to
Advocate during your medical appointments. Be prepared for it. Write your symptoms down. Write when they started, how long they last, what they are. Know your concerns beforehand. Have a clear thing. One of the problems I've seen with the system that I'm in, and it is an insurance company HMO healthcare system. I go in and they will only, in a visit, they'll address three things. What three symptoms or three issues are you worried about? And I'll go in with my three issues. And it may be, gee, I sprained my wrist. I have gastric reflux, and I've got this dizziness. And by the time the medical assistant is done, I don't know it, but when the doctor comes in, she says, oh, you're here. Let's see, I see you're a diabetic. Your A1C is up a little bit. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about your diet. And we're going to talk about, oh, yes, you have a sore throat right now. None of the things that I wish to address. And you need to advocate for yourself. You need to be clear. You need to make sure that use phrases like, can you explain why, you're recommending this treatment? What does this test mean? Like you said, we had talked and you have medical knowledge. You're in the medical field. So am I. I know, I tell the doctors, I will ask questions. I know a lot about the medical field. I am not a doctor. I am not a nurse. Not at this point. But I used to be a limited license x-ray tech. I used to be a back office nurse, and I spent 10 years in the field. So I understand things. But they talk to my husband like he is a doctor. And he walks out of there going, I have no idea what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, if I'm with him, I can explain it and I can ask the questions while they're in there. You shouldn't have to be treated like someone that they're just going to talk at you, not
Mm-hmm.
to you, and not
Yes.
explain. But being prepared for that, seeking a second opinion, when to seek a second opinion, if you are unclear, there's an unclear about the diagnosis or a discomfort with the treatment plan or no treatment plan at all. Some people walk out and they go, what just happened? I need to talk to someone else, whether it's in that system or you in most healthcare systems, even if they have their own specialties and everything, you have the ability to ask for a second outside opinion, not
Absolutely.
within their
Absolutely.
system.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'll tell you, we haven't even scratched the surface of your extraordinary life and a lot of things that you've done, but you're also um, yourself moving into coaching. And could you talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you want to help your clients with?
Yes, I'm wanting to uh get engaged in more speaking. I'm working with uh the several different agencies and organizations, including the healthcare system that I'm in, with some of their administrators to advise them. The old adage of you can't fix what's broken if you don't know what happened. I think it's very important that people advocate. They leverage their community, their support networks. And I want to participate in that. I would like to speak with and help assess different situations. I think it's important that people have a place to turn. I think that organizations should utilize both their healthcare professionals and their clients, patients, as their input for information. And that is one of the things that I have heard from this particular place. Their employees say one of two things. Well, they don't listen to us. If you're talking to the administration, please tell them they need to listen to their employees. And they also say, well, if I were you, I'd just go somewhere else so you can get some better health care.
Mm,
That is not what you want to hear from your doctor's office and their nurses and their staff,
yeah.
to go somewhere else. That is really not good. And I'd like to be the catalyst to help change some of this wherever possible. I would be like to help people as an individual and as companies. When you talk about wellness, it's not just as an individual, it is systems,
Mm,
systems that have bad cultures,
mm,
uh, poor policies, poor communications. I think that is the biggest thing that I feel an urge to address is communications and self-advocacy. If people would talk to each other, not talk at each other, and if the people they were talking to would listen, active listening, not it goes in one ear and outside the other. I think that's the most important thing. So that is what I'm doing is I'm developing um, working on developing a system right now so that
mm.
I can address some of these issues, especially with the medical profession.
Well, really, I really want to thank you so much for all of the information that you gave. It's clear your passion is there, but it's a battle, to be honest, that will never be solved in this system. It takes literally the end of this system and its replacement with a brand new system, a brand new world, if you will, to actually see a place where everyone is treated fairly, where there is no such thing as a healthcare system, but full health for everyone. You know, I really enjoy hearing your experiences, your insights, but I have one question as we bring the show to a close, and I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I think that my microphone is on fire, or at least the speakers are, because the heat of your passion comes through so well, or that might be the force emanating from Obi-Wan Kenobi sitting over there by next to you, you know. But
He's laughing.
but I really value your thoughts, and I have one last question for you. I ask this of all my guests. Sherry Winslow, What does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
I think that crushing your mountain is taking and not being overwhelmed by the mountain, taking bits and pieces. No one can pick up a mountain. They have to take it and whittle it down piece by piece. And you do that by being prepared. You do that by leveraging your resources. You do that by holding, in this situation, healthcare providers accountable, advocating for system change, focusing on self-care. You have to take care of yourself. You cannot attack a mountain. You cannot go to work. You cannot do anything if you don't take care of yourself. A construction company goes in with dozers. They don't just move a mountain. They do it a piece at a time. And we have to do that. We have to stay focused. We have to stay committed. And we have to be committed to ourselves, to take care of ourselves, and to ensure that other people that we are asking for help provide the help that they're getting paid for. And that's how I crush my mountain.
Oh, that's powerful. You know, it's so very true. That's the idea of that we talk about so much in terms of taking your axe, taking your chisel, taking your sledgehammer, and chipping away until you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's so important that if you are a woman, sometimes things seem overwhelming and the challenges are there. And in some cases, the health institutes of this country and in many cases of the world is stacked against you. There's terrible prejudice against women and things. But that's why it's important that we as human beings, whether we're men or women, we recognize that we can help one another by giving them the research, taking the lead in asking the questions, and pointing out where there may be changes or challenges or disparities. But most importantly, to be there as the support to help individuals move forward. This is something that's so vital for human beings to understand that we need to support one another. And I'm just so grateful that I've had Sherry here with us today. She's a lot of fun. When we talked a lot before the show, and when we first had the interview to discuss being on the show, we talked, I think it's a 15-minute thing. We talked, so I think over an hour, because she's so much fun to chat with. And it has a lot of deep insight. So we look forward to having you back sometime in the future to see where you are in the stream of things. But until then, friends, once again, like I always say, remember this: let your doctor be your coach. Let your doctor be your partner in health. Don't just climb your mountain, crush through it. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much, Sherry.
Thank you, Henry, for the opportunity.